My name is Kyle Jones. I own, my brother and I own Jones Sport Fishing. We operate on the Clearwater, the Snake, the Columbia, and then we also are down on the Snake River in southern Idaho, all the way to southeast Idaho. So I run our Idaho and Washington and Oregon stuff, and my brother Brett handles all of our southern Idaho stuff. So if you follow any of our Facebook pages or anything, you'll see a lot of our sturgeon pictures and a lot of stuff from southern Idaho. That's one of the options that we have. But I handle kind of all of our stuff up north in the Clearwater. A little bit about myself. I've been guiding full time for the last 15 years. I started out rowing a drift boat on the Clearwater for a drift boat only company. Ended up getting a power boat, starting a business in Washington and Oregon on my own, and started running on that for a while. And then 2 years ago, it'd be 2020, January 2020, my brother and I had an opportunity to buy an outfitter license on the Clearwater in Idaho. And so once that happened, we've really kind of experienced a lot of growth since then. My two older boys here, Samson and Henry back there, they're both on cameras. They're you see a lot of our videos and pictures and stuff, they're pretty much stars in it. And then my daughter Kylie, she's the shining face and stuff. And then little man terrorist Moses is right there, and my beautiful wife Danny. So if you ever call us looking to book a trip and you call our office, it's Danny that you'll talk to. She does a lot better job of actually picking up the phone than I do. I'm usually in my pickup flying around back and forth, so the cool thing is we've got her in the office, so you can actually get a hold of somebody and get a trip booked. We'll try to get back to you. But the topic of today is going to be Spring Chinook. Pretty excited about that because it's right around the corner. But do you guys have any questions about any of the other stuff we fish, like Brewster, Fall Chinook on the Clearwater, Hanford, Buoy 10, anything like that? Feel free to ask some questions. Really what I'm going to cover is I'm going to start. You can see I got pretty much just the seminar's kind of flying by the seat of my pants, kind of like the way I run my business and everything. So I grabbed some rods out of the shop this morning. But I'm going to start out with kind of Wind River, Drano Lake, that kind of stuff. Then we'll work up river, and I'll kind of go over Clearwater springers, the couple of different things that we do there and what we do. And so if you guys have any questions anywhere in between, please feel free to ask them. That way I can kind of help you guys work on it. I want to keep it fairly open. That way we can kind of work through stuff, and whatever questions, we can get onto that. I think that's the best way to learn, is if you've got a question and I touch on it and it sparks it, let's ask it, and we can go through it and kind of learn. So I'll just kind of start off downriver. So I'll just preface, I used to fish. So I fished steelhead on the Clearwater I used to fish till about right now. Now I finish up at the end of February because I coach high school baseball. But as soon as we were done, we used to kind of quickly clean things up, and then I would head for the lower Columbia down around Portland, and I'd start fishing those Spring Chinook down there, and we would just follow them the entire way back up the river to Idaho. And so every step along the way has a lot of things that are similar, and it has a little bit of things that are different. So that experience over a number of years has kind of helped. It's helped in not only watching dam counts and predicting where to be when, and trying to be on the front edge of stuff. A lot of times I find myself making moves that might be a day or two ahead of other guys as we were coming up the river, kind of just watching fish and where they were going to be. And some of those things gave me some advantages to getting on some fish before maybe it got real crowded in certain spots and that kind of thing. So I could even talk about down there, but we'll start right now. Barry, since I'm coaching baseball, Barry has kept our Columbia River Gorge Spring Chinook stuff alive. He's down there fishing. Oh, and by the way, Jesse, who fishes with us, awesome team member for us on the Clearwater. He's here in the back room, and his wonderful wife, Kristen, is here as well. So they're awesome. Having an awesome team is the only way that this stuff happens. So, Wind River, the Gorge, if you watch my social media posts and stuff like that, you'll see that we kind of just lump the Columbia River Gorge fisheries kind of all into one. And really what I'm talking about when we mention that, I'm talking about the mouth of the Wind River, which is there right at Stevenson, and then we're talking about Drano Lake. And both of those they're like 4 miles apart. So a lot of times we make decisions on which spot we're going to fish based on conditions, which spot's fishing better, people. Both those places can be very, very busy, to say the least. And so sometimes you might choose to fish a spot just because you feel like there's going to be less pressure there, and you got a better chance of catching fish just because you're not dealing with so many people. Perfect example would be, Drano on Saturday morning. I want absolutely nothing to do with that place. Then I used to love fishing there. I've kind of grown out of it, but it's got its times and it's fun, and everybody really gets along. But the name of the game down there is trolling, and pretty much what reigns supreme is the prawn spinner. And so I can even pass these around, or if you guys want to get a chance to come up and look at these a little bit later. So it's mostly suspended. So when I say suspended trolling, really all I'm talking about is where we're not physically bouncing lead off of the bottom. So lower Columbia, you're fishing triangle flashers most of the time, actually running your lead to where it's almost ticking bottom every time the wave pops. And so pretty much everything upriver of that, we're not hugging the bottom like that. We're up off. A lot of times we're pretty well suspended. We're within maybe 5 feet of the bottom. And anytime we're fishing to where we can be within 5 feet, or we're not worried about being right on the deck, we're going to be fishing a 360 flasher. These things over the years have just absolutely proven to be incredibly effective. And it's not only the fact that they roll and put action on our gear, but it gives us visible indications of our trolling speed and if we're fishing where we need to be. And I'll explain all that here in a little bit. But so this trolling setup is the exact same trolling setup that I will use for Spring Chinook in the Columbia River Gorge. If I end up trolling near Lewiston, instead of being on anchor, this is the same setup that I'll fish fall Chinook in Lewiston with. It's the same setup that I'll run at Buoy 10 for fall Chinook there, and then I'll also fish this exact same setup at Brewster, Chelan Falls, Wells Dam for sockeye and summer Chinook. So this is pretty much our just dive in the wool go-to salmon trolling setup. Really the only thing that changes is what's on the end of it. That gets tweaked a little bit depending on where we're at. But so for Wind River Drano, Wind River is kind of a different beast. It's its own little fishery. So Wind River it's the mouth of the Wind River. It's a bubble fishery where you actually launch in the Wind River in Washington. You hunt out there, and that fishery is really dependent on the fish that are coming up over bottom. It's really the first shot that you get at them as they come pouring over bottom. So those first time you first start seeing those big numbers coming over, you're going to start to see some pretty good fishing at Wind River like that afternoon. So you can be there and it'd be like 200 fish a day, and maybe you're getting one here or there, then all of a sudden it lights up and you haven't had the well, this is before we could just check dam counts on our phone right when they happen, but you'd be like, man, it must have been a big number, and you look back and there was 1,200 or something that had come over. It's like a light switch that'll hit. But so Wind River, pretty much all prawn spinners, and there's 2 different ways to set this up. Most guys do. The hook configurations can be a little bit different. I go back and forth between running 2 singles and 2 trebles. I swear, you can ask Danny, I tear apart my entire hook section and retie all my leaders at least once every year and a half. I just nope, that doesn't work very well. And I lost too many fish today, and I rip them all apart, and I do something else, and it works for a little bit, and that was sweet. And then all of a sudden, I'll go 0 for 14 or 1 for 14 again, and I go pull everything off and go back to something else that I did. So whether it's 2 singles, a treble and a single, or 2 trebles, I don't know, I think you're kind of in the same boat everywhere. Although down there it's pretty sweet, you can run barbs, so barbs help a lot. But really the name of the game is you're rigging up the prawn. I wish I have some videos. I actually have videos on how I rig my prawn spinners, but it's pretty simple. You're going to notice a theme throughout what I do. Is my setup is just, I try to keep things as simple and as repeatable as possible. When I'm in my boat, I've got sometimes 6 rods out that I'm fishing. I can't get real goofy or real complicated with anything, because if it comes out of the system too much, it'll get tangled with one in front of it. So we're trying to run as simple of a process as we can and still make sure that we're getting bit all the time. So I know somebody's going to ask me about my leader length on my prawn spinners. The funny part is that usually I have absolutely no idea. I'm not kidding. Barry, you guys probably see, he'll come over to my boat and measure stuff. He's like, no, this is even matches. I'm like, oh, I just like that far. You know, how long are they? Oh, like that. You know, and he's like, is that like 32 inches like that, or is that 28? I'm like, sure. I do the exact same thing with my bumpers. When we first started fishing the 360 flashers and stuff, we always just tied them on 50-pound line, our bumpers, and then guys started using the real heavy, 200-pound shock cord, and I did that for a while. I made my own bumpers and had them measured and all that, and I've gone back to just running 50-pound mono because I literally have a spool, a 50-pound spool sitting in my wash sink of my bumper material. And as you guys know, if you fished this stuff before, it comes back in a ball a lot. And so I can just reach up, cut it off, and I go, tie a new one on, and tie everything on, and throw it back to her. I don't have to dig around in my box for, what bumper length was that, or the pre-made ones, or is it the orange or the green one, or I just go ahead and tie it up and send it. So, and if you ever get the chance to fish with my brother Brett, he's even worse than I am about his distances. Barry got in his boat at buoy 10 because Brett was smoking us on leaders, and somebody had told him that we had forgotten, last year was the first year that he had guided out there, and nobody had told him what the leaders were supposed to be. So he just pulled them off the spools and tied them off. They were like 6.5 feet long behind, and he was wrecking fish just over and over and over again. We jumped in there to look at his leaders. One of his bumpers was that short, one of them was 35 inches long, and then one of his sets of leaders was almost 6 feet. So watching him fish, between him and myself, and not paying attention to that stuff as much, there's times where it's not nearly as big a deal as everybody wants to make it out to be. Especially for Chinook. I think the biggest thing is your speed. And so when we're trolling in those fisheries down there, we're a lot of times, like the mouth of the Wind River, you control both directions. There's current there. We're trying, the water's still cold, so we're trolling fairly slow. But by fairly slow, I mean my rod tips are, this is where I'm probably going to get glossy eyes and lots of questions. That's perfect. But so, if I'm trolling and that's loaded up with 8 or 10 ounces of lead, I'm looking to see it just do, and I'm going slow. I just want to see it doing that. Nice, rhythmic, kind of a slow thump. If I'm going fast, it's, and it's not even hovering every time. But like, I want to flex almost the whole way back up and just slow thumps. Just enough to roll that flasher over, and we're fishing. So, but, and same thing for Drano. Drano gets a little bit more interesting because of the amount of people there. And Drano is really hard as a guide because you get in that circle and you have to be totally okay with watching somebody else kick your butt. Because somebody's going to. Every single day. Somebody's going to get in there and somebody's going to rail on them. Everybody might be. And you might just not be in a position when you're going around the circle to where there's any fish that are going to bite your gear. And you can literally miss them. And then, oh, they come back in the circle, and you go back around, and oh, they're catching them, sweet. And you go back around, and they're gone. And then you go back out, and you get all the way, oh, somebody else has one. And you guys are pointing every time they see somebody hook a fish. And you're just like, trying everything I can. They look at you, hey, should we switch? I'm like, no. You know, what are they doing different? Nothing. And then you'll have moments where you feel like a hero and you're catching fish in front of everybody and they're worried about you. So those two fisheries can be tough, but they're awesome. And I can answer any questions about that. I know I kind of glossed over those. I mean, everything that I could probably talk for an hour or more on any of this stuff. But for the sake of just moving through and then kind of, we can touch any of that stuff here in a little bit. But let's jump up to, well, let's leave that there. So we'll start fishing down there at the end of April. Probably the last week is when about time we first expect to see fish there. And then we'll fish it through about, what, Danny, the 10th, 12th, would you say? Yeah, Mother's Day-ish. There's always this pull because we've got fish headed to Idaho and they're coming home and we want to be at home. And then the fishing's still good there, so it's like, on what day do you break and pack up all your stuff and drive all the way home to get back on them again? And so that's what we're always playing with that. And so it's normally kind of that 3-week window, Mother's Day to end of April to Mother's Day. But then there's been years where we fished down there clear into early June as well. I remember a couple years ago where they had actually closed our Clearwater season. I'd been down there. I came home. They closed our Clearwater season before the fish got there, and then I just packed up and drove back down there like that night. Got back down and tried to salvage some work. But so I try not to run around like that anymore. They have too much family. Let me go over kind of rods and reels. This will be similar to everything else. I pretty much run the exact same setup. This is where I'm going to differ from a lot of guys. Over the last couple of years, and this one, don't quote me on it because if you get in my boat in a month, I may have ripped all this off and I got something else on here. But I bounce back and forth between an absolute love for monofilament and a hatred of it, and a love for braided line and a hatred for it. So I'm pretty squarely in a monofilament stage right now. So we'll just call it a stage. I think this time it's going to stick. But so my main go-to is I run 30-pound mono. Most guys pulling flashers and stuff are running braid. I know Jesse runs braid. He's been on my boat. Barry and Jesse think I'm crazy for running mono. The reason I run mono is for a couple of different reasons. There's two main reasons. The shock, the stretch in mono is huge. I think, especially in fisheries where the fish, whether it's real warm water or real cold water, you get a lot of head shaking and that kind of stuff, I think the stretch in the mono helps keep fish pinned up. Also, when this comes back in a ball, it's really easy to just grab my scissors and hack it there and just start retying stuff because it's all mono, it's cheap. I got a spool of 2,000 yards and it's sitting back in camp. If I end up needing to respool something, I respool it. And there's a lot of times where stuff will come entangled that it just kind of stopped by it laying over itself, and you can just quickly pull it apart, untangle, and throw it back in the river, and we're in good shape. So, but with braid, it would have been just a ball. So those are two of the reasons. One of the major drawbacks with the monofilament is you really have to be careful about heat. So depending on brands, right now, my favorite, it would be it's cheap, it's strong, it's Berkley Big Game 30-pound. It's probably my favorite if I didn't have to worry about heat. So a lot of the years, springers, I'll have the 30-pound Big Game on, and then Once it gets hot, I'll go to Maxima Chameleon and that brown stuff that's super hard that we all used to have on spinning reels and it came off all over the place. That Maxima Chameleon will withstand the heat. I found that where it kills me is Brewster, right? Because my boat, it's 100 degrees. My boat's sitting there. I've got rods in my rod lockers and they're sitting in, they're just baking it up. And so, for whatever reason, Berkeley Big Game and Maxima Ultra Green will both get really weak in the heat. And I had a year where I'd had a ton of leaders tied up in Maxima Ultra Green. They'd been in my boat in Brewster, hadn't even fished, a bunch of brand new stuff. I got down to Astoria, started hooking fish, and they were breaking like it was 12-pound test. And they hadn't seen sunlight or anything like that. They were just sitting in my fish box, or in my boxes and in my boat, and they had just cooked. So be careful with that if you run mono. Leaders, everything for my forward trolling setups, leader-wise, is always tied on fluorocarbon. I like the Seagar STS fluorocarbon. It's the salmon steelhead version. It's really tough. It's a hard leader material, and that stuff I can leave. I've still got rolls of it from last summer in my boat right now that I would have no problem pulling out of there and fishing. It does not deteriorate. It stays strong. It's stiff, so it kicks around behind your flashers pretty well. And yeah, but that's my breakdown on like main line and then bumpers. Yeah.
Still 30 pounds?
It depends. That's the one. It depends on where I'm at. Springer's 30 pounds, plenty. If I was in Astoria fishing for fall fish, we'll run 40 or even 50. Just because Brewster, I'm running 30. Yeah, 30's plenty. But that's kind of the rundown there. So the sweet thing is, and then this is a key component. This is one that I can't believe I didn't figure out until years afterwards. This little rubber piece is called a gum pucky. I found out from saltwater guys that it's actually supposed to be shoved into the head end of a hoochie, and it helps give it shape. But I was looking at them. I always have problems when we reel our lead up and everything, and punching out rod tip eyelets, breaking stuff all the time. And was just looking was in England's Marine down there and saw those things and saw that they had a hole in them. And I bought them and put them on there, and I haven't had an eyelet punch out since. So, and that's a couple of years now of it. So it's just that rubber, and you can actually watch it as it comes up. I can't reel that thing. You don't hear the clank anymore. It's sweet. So I would highly recommend that. That's been an absolute savior. And then I run the VIP line lock sliding swivels, or the sliders. They actually lock into your V chain. And I was skeptical of them at first because I thought, how really is that big of a deal? Like your V chain actually working? But with that lead on there, it pins that V chain, and I don't get near the line twist with the flashers that I did before. And that was running that slider brought mono back into the game for me for fishing this way, because before they used to twist and you'd end up getting twist. I'd have mono break halfway down the leader when I was just trolling around. That's really cool when you got $25 worth of stuff hanging out there and you troll along and the rod just goes limp. It's like, sweet. Yay. But, so that's that setup. We'll move on upriver a little bit. We can go over any of that stuff at any point in time. But moving upriver, this is my favorite. So, moving up to the Clearwater. So the Clearwater will have fish in it. Typically my first day that I feel like under a normal year that there'll be fish around is May 10th. May 10th has been circled on my calendar for probably the last 20 years as long as there's some fish around. It seems like May 10th I always get my first one. Some years it's earlier than that, some years it's later, but May 10th is like where I am wanting to be. The Clearwater is unique. It has, so we're at the end of the road on the Clearwater. So the only problem with the Clearwater and the Idaho fisheries is that if predictions come in under what they predicted for Spring Chinook, we get the short end of the stick. So the Columbia gets the fish, they get to have their fisheries, then they go, oh crap, on run reassessment, and suddenly we were out of luck. So that can happen, that's the one downfall, but we also have a harvest share on the Clearwater that's not tied into anything that happens in Washington or Oregon. So like where the snake, those lower snake fisheries, we get absolutely hosed because there's no specific catch numbers for that region. It's all baked into the overall number, and so we're competing with the number of people from Portland and Vancouver for that same number of fish. That's why that's at least been my explanation that I've got every time I've raised my hand and been like, hey, this sucks. So, but yeah. So to the Clearwater, Clearwater really ends up having two main fisheries. There's the anchor fishery that happens in Lewiston. There's a bunch of guys that love that. It's easy. And then there's kind of the upriver fishery. So I tend to spend, I've done both, but my bread and butter is fishing upriver. I like being on the river where it's flowing. I don't like being in town around bridges and trains and bikers going down this way and a recycle flame plant over here and all that. I mean, that you can kill them down there at the train bridge, but there's a lot of times where that's just kind of one of those choices that I make. A lot of times I'll just end up being upriver. Even if there's, because I feel like if there's fish there, I can catch them upriver, even if it's kind of slow. So, with that said, this is the cool part about having everything rigged up this way, right? I get home, I come home from the Columbia, I unclip that, I clip on a diver, and an egg leader, or a plug leader, and I'm going. I don't have to re-rig a bunch of stuff, I can sit there real quick, and I'm ready to go. So typically, in the Clearwater, we are back trolling divers and eggs and divers and quick fish. If you're fishing down at the train bridge, a lot of times you're fishing, guys, the eggs and stuff really isn't an option just because there's so many trash fish and unwanted stuff going on down there, but it's a quick fish or even herring fishery, and you can accomplish that with either a jet diver or run and lead. There's guys even use their downriggers for it. There's really not a bad way. With those springers, you've got to be on the bottom. They're coming in, hugging the bottom, and you've got to be down within a couple of feet or you're not going to find fish. But upriver, where I like to spend most of my time, what we're looking for is, and I think I'll draw it here because it will make a little bit of sense. So the spring chinook fishing on the Clearwater is all about high water. Okay, the water is going to be anywhere. We fished it at 80,000 CFS. It'll be 25 to 80,000. So we're talking big flows. If you're used to seeing it right now, it's a different river in the spring. It's a just volume blast of water coming out of the high country with the snow melt. And so what we're looking for when we're fishing springers is we're looking for current breaks. So if the main flow is here, and we've got all this flow, I'm looking for a spot that has maybe a point that kicks out, and we've got this slower bit of water in here. Because those fish are going to come up the bank, if that makes sense. Or you have a big bend, it would be the inside bend. So if you've got a big bend in the river here, the river's flowing here, and then you've got a point that kicks out or something, it's going to be on this inside. We're always, those fish, the high water is always our friend on the Clearwater. It's also the thing that can make it incredibly dangerous and really, really tough kind of mentally to look at and deal with. But the higher the water, the closer to the bank. And so when that water's high, it forces those fish to the bank where we're able to back troll and have those opportunities out. So some of you guys might want to end up, yeah, we'll just got it. I'll leave all this stuff up here so you guys can come look at it too afterwards. So diver and eggs. My egg setup is I run a single treble hook with a couple of corkies, two or three corkies, and then a bigger corky. And this is simply tied. I take an overhand knot, I make a loop, and I do the 3 overhand through there. They get that treble hook and it pegs them a lot of times. So our fish will dip, depending on water temperature, our fish will kind of come up and start pecking at stuff and nipping at it. And it seems like that one treble hook back there tends to be the best hookup ratio. Ideally, the nice thing about the Clearwater is it's almost all hatchery fish. So I want this when the fish comes in. I want it gone. There's a lot of times where all I can see is this corky down and down. And so when that happens, they're not coming off. And like I said, they're almost all hatchery fish, and the fish that aren't hatchery fish are hatchery fish anyway. So
are you able to use bark on the Clearwater?
we aren't, no. The Clearwater, all the Idaho stuff, everything, like on the snake and in Idaho, everything's got to be barbless. So, and what we do is with that setup with the divers, we're back trolling, or you can fish it off anchor, but I like to back troll. You're pulling into the run, getting in the top of the run, setting gear out, and then very slowly moving your way down the river. So it's tough to explain that we're slowly moving, and there's times where I just want to crawl, and then there's also times where you could almost, I'm just holding it back from drifting. So it depends. If the fish are moving a ton, and I'm wanting to cover the whole run, I'll go pretty quick. If I've got a spot where there's an X, and I want to be on that spot, I will park there, and I might not move. It might look like I have an anchor out, but I'm on my kicker motor. So I'm on my kicker motor doing this the whole time, just slowly coming down the river. And then the other big setup, main setup we run there is I'll pull divers and quick fish. And I'll actually run, if I can get away with it, I'll get rid of that diver and run quick fish just by themselves. There's nothing more fun to me than back trolling quick fish just on their own. No diver, no lead, no nothing. Just that plug is back there. It just absolutely takes. So, and then these are the these are the big ones. These are the jumbo jet divers. I don't even mess around with the other sizes. I feel like if we're gonna be there, our gear needs to be on the bottom. The water's high. I've tried to run the smaller ones. Half the time you just end up fighting them. So, and if the water's low enough to where you're getting hung up with that, you probably could just run the quick fish without it. So I haven't found a point where the other diver would do a little bit better. So I shouldn't say that. There's one scenario. There's times where I back troll herring, and if I'm running a rod way out the back, I will run it with like a number 40 diver on it, just because that one seems to be a little bit too much. And that's later in the year when the water's clear and a little warmer. And I want it kind of moving around and hunting and trying to find fish in the hole. But yeah, that's a pretty speedy overview of a lot of stuff. So I think I'll just go ahead. If anybody has any questions, we can probably dig into some of that stuff.
Rod and reels.
Rod and reels. Okay, great question. So I'll say this right off the bat. I am not sponsored by anybody. I don't get any money from anybody. I don't get any free stuff from anybody. And I'd like to keep it that way because then I don't feel bad about telling you guys what I think is the best. I pay for it all, and that's the way it goes. I don't want, if you watch one of my videos, I don't want you to think, oh man, he's just trying to sell me something. So for me, I have found that I've fished a lot of rods. I really like the G Loomis, the E6X rods. I like that you can see they're a pretty slow action, real moderate. I want that rod to bend with no flat spots in it. I want that nice kind of parabolic action. I want the load up.
Is that a medium light?
These are the heavies. So these are the
heavy.
Yeah, these are the 1265s, the SARs. That's the 10.5 foot version. That's the rod that you're gonna see every day on my boat. There'll be 4 of those out. The other rod that I like is the same thing. It's just a little shorter. This is the What is this one? This is the 1174. It's a 9'9", 10 to 30 pounds, still a heavy trolling rod. A lot of times I'll run those off the back. I don't necessarily, I'm not always sold on the really long rods. I'll run the 9-footers too in these, the heavy, the same slow action. I really like for those back rods that I'm having to deal with while I'm running the kicker and, you know, like this, and I'm baiting somebody up. I like that shorter 9-footer for running out behind me because it's just a lot easier to deal with. We're running the long rods a lot of times just for our spread. Because like I said, I've got 6 guys and I'm trying to keep. I even run the 12-footers. The Loomis has in their classic Sand series has a 12-foot 4 that I really like. It's a lighter action. It's not a super heavy 12-footer like some of the ones you see. It's a medium heavy. It's a 4-power blank, so it's more of a medium heavy. But so and when you look at rod blanks, a lot of times the last number. So like the 1265, the 5 in that means it's a 5-power blank. And then, so if it was a 1266, it'd be even heavier, it'd be the extra heavy, and then a 4 would be the medium heavy, and a 3 would be even lighter. So sometimes that's the best way if you're comparing different brands. That's the best way to kind of go about figuring out kind of what ballpark. But any of the, like even the Okuma, those SSTs, are great rod. The 10-foot 6, they call it a herring rod, I think, in that series. I fished those. But as far as like getting stuff to hold up, the Loomis stuff, the Z6Xs have been fantastic. I tend to, if I can get a rod to last for a season or longer, I feel like you guys should be able to get it to fish for 10 years. It's insane what happens to my stuff. Yeah. Rods will get, fish will come in, rod will be laying on the floor, stepped over. But, yeah. Then reels, I like always line counter. I like the Shimano Takotas, but I also have, like here, this is where I get, you know, I've run the Daiwa Saltistes as well. That reel is not holding up as long as this one is. I like them both with the Shimano Takotas. This is I think these are the 300, no, this is the 400 HG. And they've got 2 different styles. They've got the one with the thumb bar across, almost like a bass bait casting reel, and they've got the older style with the lever. I think either of them are great. The Achilles heel of them is, if at some point the line counters will go out, but any reel is that way. They're all going to, eventually something's going to fail, and it's usually that line counter. But you can get a new one from Shimano. You can send reels back into Shimano and they'll work on them themselves. So the other reel that I like too is and I'll use those on my steelhead setups and my back mounts are the Okuma cold waters, the low profile ones, the small ones. And the 300s. They're 300 for you, see?
Yeah.
He's my gear. He knows the numbers.
Yeah, I run those and then I run the Dakotas as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so for the smaller size reel, that Okuma cold water is a great reel.
So those are the rods that you run when you got people. If you're out there just on your own, by yourself, what rods are you?
These. Yeah. Yep, when people get in my boat, I want them to fish with stuff that I would want to fish with if I got in there. So I try to run pretty high-end trolling rods.
So I'm saying you're running like 10.5 foot.
Yeah, and my boat's big, and I don't have a top. You know, if it was just my rod out the back, that 9-footer is sweet. The problem with it is if you end up with a whole lot of leader hanging out the front of it, you know, we've got to lift up high to be able, you can get into some interesting scenarios. But the 9-footer or 9.5, if I was like the boat you're showing me,
right.
Top, everything, you don't necessarily want to be dealing with 10.5 or 12-foot rods. 9-footers perfect. You don't need the really long rods.
running a prop on the Clearwater?
Yes.
How far up?
A long ways, probably further than I should. I say that nervously this year because with no snowpack, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. The last couple of years I have, probably the last 5. In the spring, I'll run a prop. The rest of the year, absolutely not. But in the spring, I'll run a prop. And usually I take my pump off now because I'm walleye fishing anyway. And, just come home and run the high water stuff with the prop. But
You just change the pump on.
yeah, I go back and forth. Yeah.
Are you doing it on both motors?
No, just the main motor. Yeah, the kicker's always a problem. But yeah, I don't know. I might leave my pump on this year because I'm not going down to Columbia to walleye fish, so I have no reason to pull it off. So I might just leave it on for insurance purposes. Because it does, you gotta think, like, I'll come into the bank and I'm used to having my pump on, I'm like, I'll be coming in hot, and I'm like, oh crap, I got a prop down there, and I'm trying to trim it up.
Right.
So, but I like running a prop more than my pump, because my boat runs like a hot rod. That not being able to run shallow. And it might be interesting, if that water's low around Orofino this spring, those gravel bars and stuff are going to be a winner. So it'll be with a prop. You can still run it. I've gone up through around Pink House with my prop on in 3 feet of water before. And I've run my prop all over on the reach.
Right.
You know, the whole thing from Ringgold. I ran one day from Ringgold all the way to the power lines below the beach one time. So I've run all that. I think
Yeah, the free-flowing bars are great.
yes.
As long as you stay in.
Yeah, there's that one spot.
Yeah.
There's that one spot between wood power lines that can get.
Actually, gloves has changed quite a bit, but it's not long too.
Yeah, you come through there in the dark. It's today the day.
Are you doing the whole snake at the Clearwater?
The whole snake.
Yeah.
We probably won't mess with the snake for Spring Chinook just because it'll be super limited. It's usually only like 1 or 2 days. And it'll be open at Ice Harbor for a day, and then Red Goose. And by the time I drive all the way down there and chase all that around, I'm not supposed to stay home. I used to.
You got some a lot of walleye down through there though?
Yeah. Barry's gonna be down to walleye fishing here in a couple days. 20th, I think, is when he starts. He's gonna start down at Lions. Is he mostly gonna be at Lions? I think?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's fishing Lions
Yeah.
and Columbia
Yeah.
at Utah.
Yeah.
He's probably like good fish right now, I would say, with number 2 kilos.
Yeah, we bounce back and forth.
Are you going to any of the bars? The locks, I mean.
Oh, it's like which parts follow it? I don't know. My wife's here.
Yeah, really.
No, we don't walk through. No, we just trailer around. I got to walk through a couple times when I worked for Dubai.
Gotta try it.
It was fun. We used to walk through in the middle of the night. Other than that, if anybody has any more questions?
Have you set up right above the 95 bridge? And that quick water in the shallows? You fish that?
I have fished right below the 95 bridge. A time or two. I've caught them there on the bank, and I've anchored in there too on those couple of those currents. But not right above it. Like you're talking like off the bottom of that island.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've driven by and looked at it,
Right.
but I've never set up there. I don't anchor a ton when I'm upriver with guys, with customers, just because I like to move around.
Right.
And honestly, it appears like I'm working harder, I think, if I don't feel like I'm just sitting in one spot and leaving it to chance. So it's like we can move around, we're in and out, and we can hit different lanes and try to figure it out. But like, heck, if I'm with the family and stuff, I love just anchoring up and getting everything out, hanging out. I think I catch probably just as many fish. Yeah. But
I was just curious how shallow that was right there.
in the spring, it's not that bad. It comes through there. You can almost run the thing all the way across. Right now it's really short. We run it in the fall, and it's really skinny.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
You're running-
I've hit in there more times than I can count.
Really?
Yeah.
But mouth of the.
No, right under the 95 bridge.
Oh,
It's probably it's a nasty little spot. You can run it, but it's one of those that doesn't look right. You gotta know exactly.
Is there big boulders in there? Or is it just
It's mostly smaller stuff, but the way you gotta come down and up through there, if you miss it, you're in the stuff that you're gonna stick it on.
Gotcha.
And I've come down, I've hit coming down river, just not having, kind of getting out of it and not carrying enough momentum and like swung my butt end around and like waiting, nothing. I've never ripped a shoe off there, but I've cracked shoes other spots.
So do you fish anything from the top of the paper mill to that 95 bridge?
Barry likes to spend some time in there. I don't fish in there that much. I fish, when I'm on the lower part of the Clearwater, I'm usually around Gibbs. Because when I come down the hill to the river, I live up in Deary, so when I come down, Gibbs is the first spot that I hit.
Okay.
And I feel like the river really starts to change from, that lower end is super wide
Right.
and kind of, it's just, you look at it and it's all spread out and it can be anywhere. As you get upriver, I feel like they start to have to pick one side or the other to come up, and they kind of start to like follow specific lines.
Okay.
And so that's why I know guys that do, and there's some good anchor spots downriver, especially if you're not wanting to be around any people.
Right.
But I tend to fish Gibbs and up. Just one of those, right? Just I know it so well, and I've fished it for so long that it's like if they're there, there's specific spots that I know I can pick them off of. A confident spot. But
You run up there with a pot like that far?
with knowing where you're going, yeah.
There's no.
I
there's
caution that though majorly.
no- Is there somewhere to launch up?
There's a launch at Gibbs Eddy. Yeah. Yeah, but I would with a high degree of caution, you can run it with a prod. Depending on what kind of boat it is, a lot of guys aren't going to feel comfortable. Just because you're not sure where you're at. And you can hit some stuff, even during the high water. So, yeah. It is expensive. It doesn't get it. It's only getting more expensive every time you screw up. Right, Henry?
Just $1,000.
Yeah, it used to be 100.
what's that?
Both must have another $1,000.
Yeah, that's going up. They're gonna have to change things. It's been a lot more than 1,000 every time I've been. Buy now with a diesel pickup, you're out $5,000 anytime you go anywhere. Yeah, so that's my gist, I guess, on my Springer program. Really glossed over a lot, but there's bait curing and all sorts of stuff. And so I've got, if you're interested in, I've got a shrimp curing video on my YouTube channel at Jones Sport Fishing. Jones Sport Fishing is my YouTube channel. There's a shrimp curing video on there. That is a very simple method that I really like, and it's actually what I fish. A lot of guys have much more in-depth shrimp grinds and that kind of stuff that they run, but that simple process that I put out there is what I run. Most of the time, it's always kind of evolving. I think there's actually 2 shrimp videos out there. So one's from 6 or 7 years ago, and the other one's from maybe a couple
Where
years
do you
ago.
get your shrimp?
I buy them in a 35-pound box from D&G Bait usually.
Out of Wilson?
No, they're in Clackamas, Oregon.
Oh,
So if I'm on top of it early enough in the season, they'll ship it to me, but I may have to go get it this year since it got warm. Yeah, I buy it in the big box. And so when I do my shrimp, I use the same base gear for my shrimp that I'll fish for salmon, steelhead. Those are the same shrimp I'll fish for sockeye. It's pretty much the exact same process. And I'll add stuff to it here and there if I want to change it. But I like starting with something that's simple and that I know what it is and it's repeatable, and then I can mess with those batches from there. And depending on what we're fishing for, water temperatures, I would change it quite a bit.
So your spin rig there, on the lower Columbia, you running shrimp on that, or you running?
Usually, so I'm with like below Bonneville, herring. Yeah, down a triangle structure. Yeah.
And right above, where you run the same thing? For bait.
And right above, it seems like as soon as they go above Bonneville, we start fishing. For some reason, everybody starts fishing prawns.
You guys pulling the head
But there's been times where, when I was a kid, we used to go train them and just crush them on herring. That's all the fish. We didn't know.
No.
Herring or wiggleworms.
Yeah, running much for super baits or.
No, I will run the smaller super baits down there. Yeah, like the minis and the cokies. Yeah, I run a lot of those cokies. When those cokies first came out, I was still fishing down there every year. They were really good. So
Just like in smaller presentation.
they seem to, for whatever reason, the springers seem to like that smaller presentation. But then, I mean, I've seen guys roll into the big full-size ones too, and start breaking fish. So I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. I have a lot of confidence in those smaller ones, the minis and the big ones.
So you run the signs and the two
The Simon ones.
Yeah.
I haven't even played with them. I had a buddy give me one. With that stuff, and even the spinfish, honestly, I have so many stinking super baits
Right.
that open up and you put tuna in that spin that I'm just like, I don't know that I need anything else. Remember the point where there's so many different color combinations. I just want to go back to fishing herring. Like, I just want to cure herring and call it good fish.
Oh, it's gotten out of control to say the least.
Yeah. And then you got a guy like Jesse who has custom paints and stuff all over the place. And then he's throwing that at you like, hey, try this one. Try this one. Look at this one. Sends me a picture, You gotta see this. I'm like, dude.
Every year they come out with a new color.
Yep, they come out with-
And you can't catch fish on the older color anymore.
Exactly.
Apparently.
Maybe there.
I mean, a hot tamale doesn't work.
There days were different colors.
Or blackjack. Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, but thank you guys. I appreciate taking the time to listen. Anybody has any more, make sure we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. We'll see how long that lasts.
Sombrero.
Yeah.
You have to have any electric sombrero. Not like
He knows.
not like your markers, but you have any
He
type
studies
of
late at night.
jam markers or up the.
Pick up a little mini plug.
Just trial and error.
Just trial and error. Yep.
I will say that
Time.
don't be afraid to try different stuff.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to Lewiston and like, the anchor show is kind of the big deal down there.
Right.
Whether it's, at the train bridge or, along the way, all the way up to basically the middle. You can catch them other ways in there when everyone else is doing it. And
Yeah.
it's better than others.
Yep. There have been.
Not a huge anchor anyway.
The water might be low this year, and so where guys are used to anchoring, if there's not that much flow in there, those fish are gonna flow through there really fast, and so you can pull plugs, flatline fish, pretty much from that Flying J boat ramp. Those fish will come across that thing in 5 or 6, 7 feet of water, and you can get them flatline and quicks there, and then you can also downhill troll super baits and spinners and stuff.
That's more what happens. You can downhill troll, super spinners, you can downhill
All
troll
sorts.
triangle, flash, and herring.
Yeah.
And there's really not many guys who do it.
So, and all the boats will be anchored there from like that last point with bathrooms on it down. And so that everything above that, you're not in anybody's way. So if you're down there and you get bored, nothing's going on. There's nothing wrong with going and trying something.
I like you too.
Yeah.
You do 90% of everything you do.
Yes. Yep.
I was
Sam's
more,
moving out.
I was more curious about making a grain shell.
Yeah.
And no grain.
Yeah, there's not much, it can be, yeah, there's not much for like markers or pointing anywhere, it's just kind of,
I haven't been able to find any type of channel, GPS stuff to put on your garments or anything.
no,
So
it's
you can
not.
find channel markers for almost everywhere except for Clearwater
Yep,
and probably salmon.
yep. I've got most of the Clearwater charted, but that's just for me running around. But it changes.
Always listen to his advice on, yeah, that's good. Doesn't always, it's not always that easy.
Yeah. Oh, I found the break in it last year.
Oh yeah, you want to be careful.
That was what I wanted to make bring about. Perfect. The water.
Yeah, you can do it. I would just be careful
No,
and pay attention and
Lions go.
try to run most of the water, go where most of the water is.
Right?
It's not a lot different than running, if you're used to running around on the beach, it's really not a whole lot different, but you just want to, as you get used to it, just pay attention, don't cut the corners.
Right.
A lot of guys are running around props or with pumps, and you might watch them cut the corner.
Oh, thank you.
So, yeah, that scenario.
They've cut a few corners where prop guys have.
Yeah,
You can also drag bottom on a pump level too. So.
absolutely. Yeah, I carry all the spare pump stuff to rebuild my pump most of the year. Daddy just had to bring me parts. Twice? Once?
One time was the barbecue.
Oh, yeah, forgot about lunch.
Well, the Clearwater's moving a little faster than in some areas than.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you.
So,
Yeah, yep. Yeah, the Clearwater, especially the spring, as long as it hasn't dropped below like maybe 25,000, CFS, you should be fine as long as you're staying in the river, that stuff. It starts to get below that, you really gotta pay attention. And I would definitely, if you're up there around Orfino, like Creek House and stuff, going above Orfino, or going above Creek House, there's some islands and stuff in there that, yeah, if you don't know where you're going, it can be a little sketchy.
yeah, I fished the hatchery hole last
Yeah.
year, but I stayed.
Stay up there.
Kind of stayed up there.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a stretch that, yeah, you can run your prop around, in October
Right.
up there. But yeah, dropping down below, you start ending up, you can end up in some pretty shallow stuff and not even know it.
Right.
It's kind of the way I'm done. Just go.
Ready to run solid?
I'll take it if you don't want it.
No! No, leave it dropped once.
I know.
It may have
Started
been.
at 2.
Are all the guys?
Yes.
No, some of them are.
I just gotta go with more, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You did.